And good afternoon, everyone. In Draftarig. Today, I'll be interviewing Flygon head coach of the Australian Ampharos of Premier League. I guess fifth season in Premier League.
Yeah, yeah.
Un
Been here since the start. Still kicking.
Still kicking. That's definitely the right word. So now that we're basically 3/4 of the season done.
hmm
How have you been feeling this season so far?
This season's been pretty good. As is tradition with the Ampharos franchise, week one was rough, but since then, we've gone 4-1 and probably maybe +9 or something like that. So yeah, if you take out that first week, things have looked good. We're happy with the way the team's going, and we look forward to what's to come.
So what I've noticed is that for the losses that you have had, they've been against the season one champ, Luke,
hmm
season two scored league champ,
Yep,
Jelly, and then
yep.
before. Do you think that if Goes was part of Premier League still, you would have fallen to him as well, or you know how to beat him?
Um, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure my record against Goes is actually very good. I know we met in season two in the semi-finals. I believe we met, and my scarf Nihiligo swept him, which was very good. Um, and I believe there's also a Aurorus emoji in the server for another very good game I had against Goes. So I don't want to go out on a limb and say Goes is my bunny, but I do enjoy playing Goes in Draft League.
He's
I
definitely
would
had.
like to think, I would like to think that I wouldn't lose to Goes, but I also went into my matches with Luke and Jelly thinking I would beat them. So we'll see.
So like you said, you had a rough start. Like a 6-0 loss to a Shell Smash, uh, Blastoise. Very
Yeah.
unfortunate, along with the likes of Torrent, giving it some extra
hmm
firepower.
Yeah.
What was the team atmosphere like in the locker room following that loss, knowing that going in, like you said, you had expectations of winning?
hmm I I haven't lost 6-0 too many times ever in Draft League, but coming out of that particular week, I actually felt surprisingly good about it. I thought the team performed really well, and the 6-0, if one or two things had gone a different way, I really feel like we were very close to winning that match. As crazy as that may sound, it was kind of neck and neck until the Shell Smash, and then it all kind of came crumbling down. I did have plans for Shell Smash, but they didn't work out for one or two reasons that we don't need to go into on air here.
Yeah,
But
that's totally fine.
um, I really thought up until like maybe the second or third last turn that I was still in this and still going to win that game. So it's probably the best 6-0 loss I think you'll maybe see. But yeah, I had some tricky sets and I thought they would pay off. And if I were to meet Luke again later in the season, I would again feel pretty confident.
All right. Well, we shall see how it all turns
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
We'll have more games to go and a lot of question marks on who's going to make it to the playoffs.
yeah.
Or
It's an insanely tight race in the Premier League right now. The fact that I could end up anywhere between first and like 11th is pretty crazy.
yep, it just goes to show when you have all these teams that don't have as many wins in the bottom of the stack, this has just made things very tough for people who are doing really well because, like you said, it's just there's a huge range of variance. So
Yeah.
now that we talked about, we'll talk more about your games, but let's talk about your team. So
Okay.
I know that you sent some of your game plan, and we know that there's been a clear MVP among your mons. But how do you feel about the team that you've put together? Do you feel like there's been any members that you feel are underperforming or beyond your
Yeah,
expectations?
sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at my matchup for this coming week against potato.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but notice that my top 2 picks have combined for something like 6 games played, 1 kill, and 6 deaths, or something like that. So Greninja and Iron Boulder have really left a lot to be desired for the team so far. I also had really high hopes for Chinchino, but it just hasn't worked out at this point yet. That could change in the back half of the season. I do see some matchups where Chinchino could do really well. I mean, Skarmory and Lantern have done what they do. They're very reliable. They get the kills. They're hard to kill. Scoliped's obviously the MVP. Komodo, the most recent addition, is insane. Very happy to have him. Her. And yeah, aside from that, I think everyone's kind of met expectations to date. So yeah, we're pretty happy with the team. We did a few trades a couple weeks ago, and we think the team is better now.
The other thing that about, as people are well aware of, is that you have Phoebe, who I think has not been on your team in previous games. I think.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
Well,
Yeah.
we traded in Phoebe after our second or third game, and she had 1 or 2 games on the bench, just to get acclimatized with the team and the facilities, learn the playbook and whatnot. But she did come last week and sadly died instantly. But her death taught me a lot about the particular set that the opponent Gabo was using, which allowed Komodo to do what Komodo does. Oh, I'm just seeing in the chat.
Yeah, I was gonna actually refer to some of these questions, so we're going to the audience as long as that's okay with you. So I can only take so many of Daizuk, so I'll start with just one of them. So there are rumors that you are dropping Tinchino. Is there any truth to this matter?
At this stage, we are not exploring trade requests for Chinchino. We believe that Tiramisu, as we affectionately name her, will. She's one of our girl bosses on the team, and we think that she'll have a good back half of the season. Yeah. So at this stage, no.
Okay. Well, there's a Daizuk's question. So, what made you? What were you think? What were your thoughts when you noticed that, as far as your kill leaders, that Skarmory has just as many kills as Iron Boulder and Greninja?
Combined?
Yeah, because 2 kills for Skarmory and 1 kill for Greninja and 0 for Iron Boulder, according to the stats here.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret I'm a pretty aggressive player, hyper offensive stuff, but I don't know, Skarmory's just a mon that I really, it's a mon that I've consistently done pretty well with for multiple generations now. I actually had a pretty cool set against Gavin in my last game, or the one before last. Unfortunately, the Skarmory didn't work out, but I think the Skarmory could do well going here on out. I expect that 2-kill number to increase before the season is done.
But I'm gonna let that go for now.
I just want to address the Gustav King Boo gif. That is another mon I actually forgot about, which probably goes to show what I think of their performance so far on the team. Vladimir has been pretty disappointing at this point.
Really? 4-4.
There was one game it got like 3 or 4 kills, and other than that, it's done not much. So it's probably a passable performance, but I want a bit more from my S tier. And the fact I benched Fluttermane for disciplinary reasons last week and we came out with a win does not bode well for the future of Fluttermane.
Yeah, I think Fluttermane has a lot of power, but also I just feel like it's not worth S for me after using last season. So like I said, you have a few weeks left to go. Which of your opponents do you find more intimidating between Potato, and I think
Draftarig.
yeah, Draftarig, yeah, Lincoln Larvatars.
Yeah, the Lincoln Larvitar sitting first in the standings right now. I actually looked at the matchups of my last two games remaining in the regular season last night when I was considering potentially doing some trades. Surprisingly, I actually think I match up better against Draftarig. So I think the potato matchup is more dangerous. Um, it's probably the match of the two that people would expect the Ampharos to come out on top with. But, as always, we'll go in confident. I think in terms of a pure matchup point of view, though, I do feel more confident in the week 8 if nothing changes.
Yeah, right now it looks like a Phoebe could have a big game against the Boston Blades, but I know I won't say any more on the matter because your roster
I
could be very
mean,
different.
Phoebe's always a mom I will look at early in the prep and see what she can do. Whether it's she's more versatile than people give her credit for. I think she can be very bulky and try and burn things and stall them out, or she can quiver, dance, and sweep. Or anything in between. There's a lot of options for Phoebe, and we're very excited to have her on the team for the back half of the season.
All right, so now you gotten some more questions in the chat. So this one's actually
Uh-oh.
from Gavaga. Is it
Mm-hmm.
true that Gavaga told you exactly what he was bringing, and he still almost went through that?
Yes and no. I will say to that. There were suggestions of 3 or 4 things he would bring. Uh, there was definitely suspicion on my end that it was a bluff and just a bit of gamesmanship. So I didn't really acknowledge it. I prepped for the entire team as I normally would, but it turns out that he was telling the truth. And he did definitely almost beat me. It came down to a very clutch upper at the end, getting 2 or 3 icicle crashes and not missing any to secure that win. I think looking at the standings, Gavin's record is surprising. I think the team is a lot better than the record would suggest, and I firmly believe he can get some wins in the last 2 games and ruin the playoff chances of several teams.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to seeing a win for the Utah Wees. So many close ones, but
I think when you're officially out of the playoff race, it gives you a bit of liberty to not overthink things, and there's nothing better than playing spoiler for a team.
mhm.
If I was in that position, I personally would take great joy in beating one of the 4-2 teams and knocking them out of playoffs.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some pride in that to a degree, being that
Yeah.
person. All right, so now we got another question, this time from Gene. Actually a two-parter. So one
Okay.
is, how do you feel about not being in the playoff position after 6 weeks?
Okay. So sitting 4-2 and not in a playoff position is surprising. I would have thought 4-2 would be good enough to be sitting in the top 5 or 6, but here we are. I think it probably says more about the league in general than just the Ampharos franchise. I feel like this is a very strong league that the server is constantly getting new competitors who are working their way up the ranks, and everyone's a threat. This is a tough league. No easy games, and I truly believe anyone can win it. So, well, anyone who mathematically can make playoffs anyway.
Agreed.
I truly believe the Ampharos franchise is one of those teams that can take the title. So 4-2, we're happy with. Sitting 7th, not ideal, but we believe we will be a playoff team.
All right, and the second question from Gene is, why are you afraid to play the defending champ?
I'm not. If Put simply, if we were to finish 4th and 5th or 3rd and 6th and had to face each other in the first round of playoffs, I would go into that match very confident that I would be in the final 4.
All right. Well, there you have it. On that accord, there is no fear from the Ampharos against the Ninetales, who are
I miss the Paragons. If they were still in Portland, I'd be more afraid. But San Francisco's a very nice place to visit. So, we're, yeah.
definitely more budget than what we saw in the Portland Stadium. Don't have to bring chairs anymore.
I
Um,
miss BYO chair. I miss that. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why. I don't know where they got this budget from, but also the Lee Vannies were a better team as well. So yeah, we'll leave that there.
yeah, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Gene took over a team late, won the championship, became part of Premier League, won a championship. So there are certain people, not naming names, who believe there's an asterisk as to how Gene was able to win it all, but still takes the skill to win it all, regardless.
I'll name one name. There is a massive asterisk next to those titles. That's it. That's from me, Sun Flygon. Gene, potential fraud.
All right. Well, we'll see if Gene can replicate the success, but obviously, that like you said, there's a lot of competitors in his way. Um, and we'll see from there. So, one thing I was curious about your team. So, Scolopede's name is Omukade, which, for those of you who don't know, is translated as a big 100 legs. So, like obviously, like a centipede. Um, I looked into that because I was really curious as to where. So, where did you come across this? By the way, this origin.
A quick Google search gave me a cool name for it, and that's where we're at. That's probably the name I know the least about. Um, the the Komodo name is a famous Maori leader. She's now deceased, but it's the name given to the chiefs or the leaders of the Maori tribes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where that one comes from. But as for Scolipede, I just a quick Google search and it sounded cool, so I went with it.
Okay. Found that very interesting when I was looking into it. This sounds very Japanese looking. I don't
I
know
think
it.
it is. Is it Japanese? It probably is. I
Correct.
genuinely
Correct.
don't know. Yeah,
So it is a spirit, a supernatural entity in Japanese folklore.
with 100 legs, sounds
Cor-
about right.
Yep. Yep. A giant man-eating centipede that lives in the mountains. While it eats humans, the Omukade has a weakness to human saliva. It also preys on great serpents and dragons.
Look at that. And I tell you what, if you want to watch that, my second loss to Jelly, if you want to see Scolipede slay some dragons, just go check that game out and see how Kieran White went.
Durham White. It's been quite a powerful mon, but we're not here to talk about that. Oh. So Gavaga's back again in the
Oh
audience.
boy.
Is it true Flygon saw me take Scolipede round 2 and realized I was cooking and now he's a fraud, stealing my strats?
I genuinely have no idea what this man's on about. Scolipede was a mon that I had my eye on pre-draft. I am shocked that across the 8 leagues in this server, I was the only one to draft it. But yeah, no, Scolpede's been great. It's no secret that I am a lover of bug type Pokemon.
Yeah.
So Scolpede being on the team and performing well is music to my ears, and I think Scolpede will have a big role to play in the rest of the season as well.
So like you said, we talked before about like how strong the leagues are, and you haven't gotten to play everyone. So who do you think is the strongest team right now, just from like what you've
in the
seen?
in the Premier League.
Correct.
I would have to say Alex and probably Storm. I think I think the one game Storm lost, which was last week, was due to some pretty unfortunate. I don't want to say hacks, but I kind of do. I think there were 3 or 4 consecutive crits to crucial members of Storm's team. I think it's a very well-rounded team and fits Storm's playstyle very well. And as for Alex's team, if you want to see a Sand team done right, look at Alex's team. He's definitely got the threat of Sand with Tyranitar, Houndstone, and I think there's one other Sand sweeper on it. But, it's Muffins, of course, the Stoutland.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think most weeks he actually hasn't brought Sand at all, and it's still been really good with the Mega Lucario and Raging Bolt and things like that. So those are the 2 teams where if I was a betting man, I would think they're probably going to get the buys. I haven't seen who they play from here on out, but they're the 2 teams that I wouldn't be upset to avoid in playoffs.
Well, two of our mods who are still looking for their first title, but nonetheless still hungry, of course.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've both. I think Storm's lost the grand final twice, and Alex has lost it once. So they've both gone the distance, just can't get that final step.
So in addition to being a DLC and being part of Premier League, you've been able to host a lot of these happy hours. How have you been enjoying doing that for the community?
I really enjoy it. I think the idea to go into the YouTube avenue has been great for the server. I hope it picks up moving forward, but I really enjoy the happy hours. It's a good time. It's laid back. Get to enjoy some good matches, potential highlights. I think the Wormadam game from Pi last week was amazing, and I was thrilled that was on happy hour. We've obviously had some good guests as well, and Pi's a great co-host, so I think that's probably something that's going to be here to stay for the rest of this season. Hopefully we can get some playoff games as well. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoy making the content for people. And as long as people are enjoying it and getting involved, I will continue to do that.
So we talked a lot about Premier League and happy hour. What teams do you want to see play on happy hour? Figure out you give them a shout out to them to see if they're willing to step up to it.
Oh boy, I mean, there's been a lot of teams who have been like, as soon as we put the announcement out each week, I typically get the same 2 or 3 people DMing me saying, we want to be on happy hour and stuff like that, and I do really enjoy those games. I personally would like to see more teal people in on it. I think the lower league stuff can be sometimes the most entertaining.
Yeah.
Just because they sometimes they're less afraid or less standard, like cookie cutter teams. They often think outside the box and stuff like that. I would really, in terms of the teams that are springing to the top of my head and stuff like that, obviously I'd love seeing Premier and Victory games because they're high quality and stuff like that. But there's a team in the Hearthflame League. I forget what it's named, but it's coached by Tugboat Tyler, the Mono Bug
team.
The
Bug League. Oh, yeah. I know that team.
I love that team. He definitely thinks outside the box. I would never think to use a Sludge Bomb, Mega Beedrill, or a Lunge Volcarona, but, here we are.
Yep.
I would love to see that kind of stuff come on because, as a commentator and, you're having a few drinks and whatnot, we try and predict the things that'll happen, and that he's unpredictable, and I love that. So that's just the team that springs to mind. I really like some of the Iron Serpent teams as well. I like seeing Tassenda's games on stream. I like seeing Gustav's team. Haven't seen your team on it yet, TJ. Maybe that'll change in the near future.
Maybe.
Wink,
Maybe.
wink.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's always a good time, and I'd love to see my co-host from last week feature a bit more on it as well. So
which one is that? Is it Yeah, you had
I
two last
mean,
week.
yeah, I mean, I'd happily take either of them. They're in the Victory League, good quality. Daizook's got some big games coming up that'll determine if he's playoffs or buys or neither. And Boss Baby brings a lot of hype. She's all about the vibes, and so are we on Happy Hour, so it's perfect.
All right. Well, everyone's heard their shout outs who's been listening to the interview. You should definitely try to set up happy hour either this week or next week if you haven't. I'm just gonna ask this one question from Daizuk before I cut into like my final questions. So
Okay.
Daizuk's last question is, what
Okay.
is your opinion on the Goes Game Coach Daizuk?
Oh, that's okay. What do I think of Daizook? Jeez, how long have we got? No, Daizook's great. He's definitely a fun and outgoing personality. Sometimes he drives me insane, but that's why we love him. He's more than a capable player, and I think he definitely belongs in Victory slash Premier. He's definitely good enough to do that. He's a very lucky kid. His 5-1 record is deceptive because 2 or 3 of those games were all luck, including against Port Anchors, his mascot. So poor goes. He's good. He's good. I think he's great for the server, and I look forward to seeing what else he can pull out of his hat and contribute moving forward.
All right. That's all we've got from Daizuk. I hope he's satisfied with his answers and having his questions. And yes, agreed with. Oh, all right. So, second part of said question is,
Okay,
how do you
there's more.
how do you feel about your players wanting to play for his team next season, assuming it plays?
I don't know what he's talking about once again. I think all the Ampharos players are thrilled to represent the franchise and playing for the gains. I mean, if he wins Victory League, there's a potential that there could be a gains association. That I could entertain the possibility of joining the gains association, but in terms of my players wanting to play for his, I think that's a myth. He often copies my strategies in draft days, so if we are in the same league, it'll be a struggle for him. But yeah, I'm excited at the thought of him potentially being in the Premier League. Should I still stay? Because as we said earlier,
Yeah.
somehow at 4-2, there's a chance I could get relegated.
Well, 2 more matches
Yeah,
to go, and
2 more to go.
two differentials looking pretty good, I think. So,
Yeah, the the first the
not
first
negative, I'm
game
saying.
definitely hurt us. It definitely hurt us that first game, but we're going into this thinking if we win our last 2 matches, we're definitely in the playoffs, and that's all. We can only control ourselves. So
No. So,
we'll see what other teams do, but we want to finish 6-2.
all right. So, my question is, so like we've had the Gavaga zone, and clearly he's not gonna fall in there this time around. If
Mm-hmm.
assuming that if you were to end up in the Gavaga zone, would you rename it because you have been in the same zone last season?
It's funny you should ask this. Another person who is currently sitting in the Gavka zone is X-Term. This is his second season in Premier League after being promoted, and he actually fell in the Gavka zone as well. I feel like the Gavka zone isn't necessarily because he falls in there all the time. It's more because of how he falls in there. Like he'll be dead and buried, and suddenly he'll find a way to get in there, or he'll be a playoff certainty and find a way to fall in the Gavka zone. It's the happy middle ground. So if we end up there and people want to rename it the Flygon or Ampharos zone or whatever, that's up to the people. But I think it's not what we're aiming for, but it's not the worst place to be, I guess.
Maybe the Australian area, if it's both you and X term, that's gonna be the
I
retitles.
mean, I'll tell you what, if it ends up with Exterminate in there, it very well could be the Australia area.
All right. And I'll leave my last final question is anything you want to say to your fans before we close out the interview?
Obviously, being the most followed franchise in the server is a daunting for me as the general manager. But we love the continued support, and we hope you'll all follow the Ampharos from here on out as we win the Season 5 Premier League.
And there's the declaration from Flygon. Win
Yeah.
Season 5. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thanks for your time, Coach Flygon. And we look forward to
It's
seeing
been
you.
a pleasure, TJ.
Yeah.
Yep. I look forward to seeing you as well. And let me know when you want to be on Happy Hour.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, TJ.
You're welcome.